Alrighty, so let's begin. The problem that we are facing is that education isn't top priority, but it should be. And quality of American education is a national concern as its constant decline puts it behind many international competitors, which we all know is not a good thing for us. Many have accepted the shortcomings of our school, but they can and should be improved. And the one that we want to focus on the most is that not everyone in America can communicate with each other.
In the past, due to the pandemic, schools were closed, accelerating the decline of American education. People are wanting to travel to different countries, but there's a language barrier. Kids in Spanish-speaking households are more at risk to failing because they don't know English. In the present, we don't have very many bilingual teachers, so it will be important for there to be more bilingual teachers. We will need more funding for teachers and new staff. There's a controversy surrounding bilingual education. America is currently on a downward trend as the divide between the highest and lowest scoring students grow. In the future, languages may eventually cancel out some of the smaller known languages. If there is a decline in education, it may negatively impact our economic productivity. America may be losing its international standing as the generation we're educating now moves to the forefront.
So as we prepared to tackle the issue of declining American education, we first did some research to familiarize ourselves with the issue and ultimately come to the conclusion of solving it with more of an emphasis on bilingual education in American schools. So as we began to research, we found that U.S. academic achievement really peaked in the 1950s. SAT scores and pro skills reached an all-time high. And at that time, America was ranking pretty high in education relative to other nations around the world. But since that time, we have fallen significantly and now find ourselves at probably the weakest point since the 50s, at least relative to the rest of the world. One source said that recent results from the National Assessment of Educational Progress showed historic declines in American students' knowledge and skills. So we've been trending downward pretty consistently since the 50s, and that trend was only accelerated by the pandemic, in which students lost months of learning and mental health issues skyrocketed, becoming more prominent. And all of that led to us reaching probably the weakest point in regards to education since the 50s, where we peaked. In addition, many studies have linked such a decline in education to a decrease in economic productivity across the nation, and that's just an example of one possible consequence of educational decline on our nation as a whole. And all of that information leads us to the conclusion that ultimately American education is the weakest it's been in decades, and it leaves our nation vulnerable to domestic and international issues.
Well, what leads us to believe that enhanced bilingual educational programs can solve this problem and ultimately reverse the negative trend American education has been on since the 50s? Well, the main goal of bilingual education programs is actually more of a dual purpose. It serves both to benefit non-English speakers by providing a method of them becoming more well-versed in the English language and allowing them to engage more effectively with English-speaking classes, and also to enrich the cultural education of those who already speak English by exposing them to more languages. Our research also supported the idea that these programs are more effective if started at a young age, which is a very important part of our plan. And several studies also connected the ability to speak or write in multiple languages to a certain cognitive advantage and a higher degree of literacy and academic achievement, which would support the idea that such programs, if made more prominent in our schools, would enhance the quality of education for all students and help to reverse the trend in student academic achievement. Several studies also show evidence of potential benefits that reach beyond academic achievement, such as enhanced attention and communication skills, and these crucial skills might lend themselves more in the career field and ultimately create better leaders for our nation going forward. So we ultimately conclude that a greater emphasis on bilingual education may improve students' academic achievement and ultimately contribute to development of crucial relevant skills. And here are several of our research sources that we used to gather this information and come to these conclusions.
We will introduce the proposal through our congressman consisting of poll data that has been found online and the benefits of all of the bilingual education, existing research in support of bilingual education. So think about all the kids, students, teachers that have been affected by bilingual education and all the research that's been done on them. We found and we would then support and go out into the real world and say, hey, this is what has happened and it is tremendous amount of benefits, hardly any negatives. And the data we have collected ourselves through interviews with teachers, student polls that we have gotten, and social media support. We would go on social media, talk about all the social media aspects of it, and really talk about and show that we have the support from social media and support from politically and professionally involved people in the world of education, like the people I said before, and hopefully many more to come with that are all in support of this bill and hopefully to get it passed because of the tremendous amount of benefits that it has in the world today.
We propose to be considered and supported by the educational authorities, and we will get support from people in Congress that specialize in educational matters so they can help encourage the passing of the bill. And to start our strategies, we will encourage within the educational field through teachers, parents, and school districts to encourage them to adopt our system, utilize social media, and spread our word even further. I think that in order to solve these problems, we would need to expand the idea of teaching another language to these kids so that their minds can grow and they're able to communicate with more people than just people who speak their language.
American education has been on the downward trend for years now. As we look at people all around the country, we see a decline in education and improvement in that education. And as we see the world today, kids, adults, not really caring about education anymore, going on the phone, doing other things instead of learning. And as we just take a look at them, you see that they're not learning. They're messing around, playing. There's no education going on. So now, let's move to the future. So, let's step into today's future of what education is like here. As we see students outside in a beautiful day, teaching each other, enriching themselves in their own culture. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
A mí me encanta aprender afuera.
Ah, sí, también. What did he say? He says that he likes to learn outside. Huh.
Aye, ikle, erne, bote outside.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
So with all that in mind, do we want the future or do we want the past? Hi, so can we get your name?
Sylvia Press.
Alrighty, yes ma'am. And so our idea is to have kindergarten through 5th graders be taught bilingual education. How do you think that would help students at a younger age?
Oh, that would definitely help students at a younger age. At a younger age, it's easier to acquire a second language, and so having that practice from a very young age will help students become much more fluent as the years progress, especially if you start off with, Spanish 80% of the time, English 20%, and then each year you kind of add more Spanish, reduce the English, and definitely I would recommend it.
Absolutely. And do you think this would help in their education in general for math, science, and...
Oh yeah, definitely. This would definitely help them in their education because you're learning all that academic vocabulary at a young age, and you can apply it throughout different subjects. And that in turn, makes for brighter kids. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Glad we
Thank you.
have you.
Thank you.
My name's Edgar. I'm here with my former Spanish teacher. What's your name?
Mrs. Navarrete.
And today we're here to talk about things for our project and to ask you some questions. Ms. Navarrete, why do you think it's important that kids know another language?
It will benefit them later in life. The adults that I talk to now, they say, gosh, I wish I'd paid more attention in Spanish. I wish I would have learned how to speak Spanish and understand it. So
Okay.
it's important. Even you might not think it is right now, but it will be.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think it would help out in the real world with different situations with other people?
Jobs, with your jobs. Those of you who work, you probably know that you've come across a customer and you want to help them, but there's no way to communicate with them. It will help with your job, even if you're just learning the vocabulary that's going to help you with your job. You don't have to know all of the vocabulary, just what's going to help you with your job. It's important.
And do you think that knowing another language makes a student smarter or could help them achieve their academic career?
I do, because a lot of the Spanish words, you can see them again in English. It'll help you remember what it means, and vice versa. Like with the cognates, I teach that in my classes. What it looks like in English, that's kind of like what it looks like in Spanish, and it means the same thing. So,
And do you
Yes.
think that learning another language can help with different subjects such as math and science and anatomy?
it can, because of the little, like the suffixes and prefixes that are in all of our words, they have the same meaning. You'll see it again, just like in, let's see, what's like in library. A library has books. Libro en español is a book. So there's a connection there.
Well, thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Okay, so I'm here with Miss.
Athena Rodriguez.
Yeah. Do you think that bilingual learning through elementary is a good idea?
Absolutely. So, both of my daughters are in dual language, so they're taught in Spanish all day. And I think it's great. I think that's when they're learning everything. They're sponges, so they're soaking up all that information. And I think it's a wonderful program.
So you do have students who are learning bilingual classes already.
Yes, yeah. So one of the studies shows that if you are multilingual, you also can process things a lot faster. So, pretty good.
So do you think that helps with other subjects as in math that you teach or science?
Absolutely. I also think it's beneficial once you get to a higher level when we don't have these dual language classes where you might be able to help somebody who, like, be a translator between a teacher who doesn't understand a certain language and somebody that is fluent in that language. So.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
So as we can see, the past and the future, compare and contrast. Do we want a smarter tomorrow, or do we want to live in a slump of uneducational students who aren't going to be better in the future? Choice is up to you.